Hi, I'm John Waldman, President of Fluid Mechanics. Welcome to FM Facebook Live, and thanks for joining us. I want to just really quick go over a couple of points from last week. One of them is remember the two most valuable things that you will ever possess are your ideas and your time to carry them out. So today we're going to try to get some great ideas and start working on carrying those out and taking that time that we have right now, where everybody's in their homes and hopefully washing their hands and things like that, right? And trying to start to apply some of the concepts that will make us better in the future, like tremendously better. So the first thing I'm going to recommend to you is if I were you, I would go to our website at fluidmechanics.net, right? And then once you go there, so that maybe after the show, and then go to FM Online Training. And when you pull that down, you're going to see the FM Discovery Center. Now, the FM Discovery Center is an absolute wealth of knowledge. It's got about 200 videos on there. We're creating more and more videos all the time, and they're absolutely fantastic. They show you some really different views of swimming, kind of looking at it from a different perspective. It's completely complimentary, so it's open to the world, and you really want to use it. It's very helpful. So I'm going to recommend 3 videos that you watch on there, and they're normally about 5 minutes or so, maybe less, and they're tremendously helpful. Number 1 is called The Process of Becoming. So you can type in there in the search bar just process or become any word, and you'll see it. The Process of Becoming, and that's a great. These 3 are all based on the mental side of swimming. Really helpful. And then watch The Old Man. This is another video. The Old Man and the Wood Stove. And again, it's kind of a really interesting, helpful anecdote that would really help you understand some very important factors. And then you want to watch fact versus perception. Again, fact versus perception, and those are really helpful. Okay. Today we're going to be talking about 4 critical aspects of strength training for high performance swimmers. These aren't the only aspects, but these are 4 critical aspects that you really want to understand. So we're going to orient ourselves to start with here, back to our cornerstones of performance, and really quickly, just for a quick review for anyone or that hasn't been with us, right here we have the fuels, which are, right, and this is what's called the cornerstones of athletic performance. And so the fuels are, sleep, hydration, nutrition, and oxygen. Right, and so those are consumables basically, and those fuels flow through the 3 energy systems. Right now, once they flow through those energy systems, right, we have the oxygen system, lactic acid system, and the explosive system. So depending on what you're doing, it'll flow through one of those 3 over to the muscle, and the muscle is going to contract, and it's going to contract around the bones. So that's the skeletal system. That's technique, or your bones and how they move. And the bones are going to get you to where you want to go, and right, that's your brain, right? And the whole question is, do you know where you want to go, and how to get there? And then in the center, you have what's called the center stone, and the center stone is synergy. How you put that all together. So it's not just that you have eggs and milk and salt, pepper, whatever to make an omelet. If you use milk, right? It's how you put that together, right, and how you combine that, how you stir it, how you cook it, all these things. What kind of oil you use and how hot you heat it will determine whether the omelet comes out good, mediocre, or really not edible. So what you're looking for is to synergize this information. How do I pull it together? And that's a really big deal. So when you race, that's synergy. When you go to college, you've pulled together all your swimming capabilities, and you took them on to college. So today, though, we're going to be going down, and we're going to be zooming in on who we call muscles marinara. This is the avatar. So we're going to be zooming in and starting to understand. He's going to show us a lot of information on strength training and how to perform that in an effective way to help you versus just to perform it. right? Because you can waste a lot of time if you're doing that incorrectly. Okay, so let's step over here real quick. And so today's presentation is we're going to show you 4 critical aspects. Number 1 is how to select the right strength trainer. And this is really important because if you get the wrong strength trainer, right, that can be a big problem. They say some of the most expensive advice you can get is free advice. That's because if you get the wrong advice, everybody's got an opinion, right? They give you their opinion, oh, do this, do this, this. But if you get the wrong advice, that someone who's not expert in what they're doing, and let's say you want to be a high-performance swimmer, and you want to use this strength to get there, and you pursue the wrong direction because they gave you the wrong advice, and you did it avidly, you're going in the wrong direction fast. We need to make sure that you go in the right direction. So, right, it's really important that you get the right direction before you heavily pursue. And we have a lot of swimmers lately, especially since they're home, things like this, asking us, what exercises should I do? There's more than just exercises. There's a lot more. And this is what we're going to show you today. So we're going to get the right strength trainer, show you how to find that. Then how to find the target exercises to perform, right? For your event, or if you're an 8th grade or earlier, right, for every event. Once you're in high school, you should start to specify your events because now you're on the college track. And so we have that. Then we're going to help you understand the basics of how you create a strength plan so you can understand, oh, I need to create a strength plan, and here's why. And then we're going to help you to determine how many exercises you need to do, or how many repetitions actually, and at what pace you need to do them. So these are things, and when you select that strength trainer, if they don't know that, they're going to lead you in the wrong direction. And then once you get led in the wrong direction, you're going to pursue that possibly without them at that point, go farther and farther. Again, you want to point your boat in the right direction so that you can end up in the right destination later. And this is what we're going to do from here. Okay, again, I'm going to select the strength trainer, find the target exercises that we need to perform, right? And I'll show you how to do that. Not just pick the exercise, but I'll show you how to pick them. Create your strength plan, and then determine how many repetitions that you need and how fast you need to do them. Here we go. So this is called FM Strength, by the way. Welcome to FM Strength. And we're going to move in, and the first thing you want to know about any strength plan, and if you don't have this built in, this is really a mistake, is make sure that you have safety first. Strength, in strength you can get injured, and so you want to be very careful. So if you don't know what you're doing, you just kind of run into a weight room and start lifting or something like that, which a lot of kids do the first time, that can be extremely hazardous, right? Because instead of helping your swimming, you could injure yourself and hurt your swimming. So some people say, well, why strength train at all? I'll show you. It's one of the major cornerstones. If you don't strength train, you're leaving that wide open for everybody else as an opportunity to beat you. So if you want to be one of the best swimmers, right, to go on to swim in college or represent your country internationally, then you're going to need strength training. And so you need to be able to do it, but you also need to be able to do it safely. One of the things I'm going to invite you to do right now is if you send us an email at swim@fluidmechanics.net. Again, swim@fluidmechanics with an S at the end .net. And if you send us an email and say, please send me your your stretching book, we'll do that for free for you. So you send that, we'll send you out that through the email. And you're going to be able to start your stretching now. It's got a few injury prevention methods in there, and it's fantastic. So do that. We'll send that out to you right away. Okay, so when we do our strength training, this is, again, starting to select your strength trainer. We want to realize that we aren't just trying to get fit here. We're training to perform. This is totally different. You're about to see why. So we can't go down to the local gym and find, a personal trainer or something like that if we want to be a high performance swimmer. And I'll explain in just a moment why. So a little while ago, I was working with a so-called strength expert. He's licensed and all this stuff, and I realized there was something wrong. They were helping us and they were getting ready to help us write a book, and I wanted, to check and make sure that all that information was exactly how it should be. And I started to realize something when I was talking to this person. I said, well, where's the taper? And this opened up just a huge realization for me. And they said, what do you mean by taper? I said, well, you need a taper, right, to get ready for your competition. And I just saw a blank stare on their face. I'm not sure I understand. And I started to think about where he got licensed from. Right? And they have these groups of in schools you can go to, and you can get licensed to be a professional strength trainer. And he had that license. And so I'm thinking about it, and I said, well, you don't know what the taper is, and what's the cycle rate that you're going to be working? I don't understand. He says, what's the cycle rate? Like, oh, wow. So what they're doing, I started to realize, you know what? These guys are being trained for the general population, because that's who they're, right? That's their target audience, is the general population. So all they're trying to do, because that's the most of the people they work with, is help people be fit, walk their dogs, and not get injured. I don't, it's not that, it's a different point of view. And so going down to a personal trainer, they may not be getting you ready for athletic performance. They may think they are, but let's find out. So here we go, selecting your trainer. And here's your participant type. And here's the training type or trainer that you need. And so if you look over here, we've got what's called a fitness athlete or a hobbyist. A fitness athlete or hobbyist, they might need a personal trainer. If you're in general population, you probably just join a gym and start working out. But again, there's always risk in this type of thing, so you want to be a little careful. But when you're starting to say, okay, I'm a hobbyist, I really like to do this, and then you might need a personal trainer to understand it better. And they can probably help you with some generic exercises and things like that. But then there's companies that they say they're they work with all athletes. They're high performance training for all athletes. Ask yourself a question. I always ask myself this question. I study swimming every day. I've been doing it pretty much since I was 9 years old, right? And I trained under the top trainer in the world, Doc Houseman, right? And just amazing, innovator in the world of swimming, right? 4-time Olympic coach, just phenomenal. And I'm thinking, I did all that learning, spent all that time, and then after that, I spent huge amounts of time every day studying more and more to understand more aspects of swimming. I don't always just study what's already written. I'm thinking about how to use physics to be able to get there. How is it possible for someone to do that? And they said to get to train any athlete for it, right? In any sport. And we're just about to take a look at this. I don't know how you could possibly know every sport, from ice skating to football to tennis to, you name it, and be able to train everybody. Let's find out about that. But let's go on to the next level, which is the elite athlete, pre-high school, 8th grade and younger. They need a sport-specific trainer. That's someone that knows swimming very heavily, right? And they're sport-specific. And then, if you're going past there and you want to go on to swim college, and now you get into high school, you now need to select your events. So you need an event-specific trainer. You need someone to build a strength profile for the 100 breaststroke, which is very different than a strength profile from the 1650 freestyle, right? Or the 1500, depending if you're in a foreign country. Okay, so if this makes sense, the trainer that you need, if you're a high-performance swimmer, if you're watching this show, most likely you are either a high-performance swimmer, a parent of one, or a coach of one, and you're just enjoying the show. So this is what they need. So they can't go to multi-sport athlete and get to the top of the world if you're not training, and you'll see exactly what I mean in just a moment, if you're not training for your event. So the first thing that we're going to use here is, if this makes sense, we're going to be using what's called the ILS triad. Now, fluid mechanics, right, named the ILS triad. We pulled it in, and I thought it was just a really great understanding for everyone. Okay, so we're going to start off, and I'm going to show you a video real quick, and you're going to see these muscles. And the first thing in the ILS triad is identify the motion. You need to identify the motion. Because after you identify the motion that you're going to strength train for, then you get to locate, that's the L in ILS, locate the muscle that you're trying to train. So you identify the motion, you locate the muscle, and then you select appropriate exercises. Now, if you're not an expert in motion of all these different, sports, if you're a multi-sport trainer, right? And again, if somebody's a multi-sport athlete, they may be not digging in too far in one. So we're going to go an inch wide and a mile deep in your event. And even further, not only your sport, your event, but your body. Right? Because each person's going to need something slightly different. That's where we customize it right to your body. And we're going to show you how to do that. So, right? So this is when you're selecting that trainer, that's very, very important. Okay, so let me switch really quickly over here, and I'm going to try to get this video here for you. And if you can see this video, right, we have one here of an avatar that is what's called Liquid Lou. And this avatar, right, if I pull him back, he's going to get a little dizzy there. Here we go. I'm going to put him in backstroke. Now, this is the avatar that represents technique. And you can see with him, he's basically just bones, right? Like a skeletal figure. So we use him for technique. However, the next one that we're going to show you is what's called muscles marinara. Now, we can see his muscles lighting up, and they're going to turn purple. Notice his forearm is starting to tense, right? It's starting to get more tense. He's going to start to pull. And as he starts to pull backwards, I'll start to just manipulate this a little bit if I can for you. Right? We can see the muscles at work here. Let's go. Can you see this right here? You can see the muscles on his side right over here. You can see the abs working. You can see the lat back here working. They're all purple, right? This area you can see over here on the leg, right? So you can start to see those work. Now, this is really important that you want to know that. Now, if you don't know the technique, how the bones should move, then how are you going to pick the right muscle and know the timing of when it should fire? Because we're going to have to train this to fire, and we're going to have to train it at a certain rate to fire on. Okay. So let's go back over here. And so if you don't know like the pathways, things like that, how long the arm has to stay in the water, and you don't know what the prime movers are, how would you know that the tricep is one of the most important muscles in the freestyle, in the backstroke, and in the butterfly? Which means if you're doing push-ups, and there's many different variations of push-ups, you might pick the wrong one, and you might train the pectoralis major, which is your chest, versus training your tricep. And you could spend years developing your chest muscle and not get any better in swimming, because it's the tricep that's giving you 60% of all your propulsion. So one of our consultants suggested to bring this out so you could really see here. Can you see what's happening in what we call A2, arms 2? It's up in the front of this stroke here. Right? Can you see the muscle that's working? So you would need to build, right, the forearms. Can you see the lat working here? These are really important factors because identify the motion, then locate the muscle, and then select your exercises. And down here, can you see the tricep? Now, out of those three, 60% of all, right? 60% of all your propulsion is coming from one of these, which is this one here. This leaves 40% for everything else, including the legs, for propulsion. That's a really important factor. So if you knew that, you might want to do more tricep push-ups, things like this, to get that accomplished. And you need to do them safely. Again, that's very important. You need to learn how to do them safely. That's what we teach in our strength programs, is not just how to train them safely, but all these aspects. We help you integrate it and learn how to plan this. Now, what about if you're training for your turn? Right? What muscle groups, right? And these call out the muscle groups that could really be helpful factors in those turns. And then in starts. And you want to pick exercises that are going to give you and work on the biggest opportunity. So you notice we started off with strokes. And the reason why we start off with strokes is because you take more time during your race doing strokes. And so you have more time to multiply. So if you worked on that tricep to help that stroke, you would get a lot of those cycles. And you could say if it took off like 1/10 of a second for every stroke, and then you count how many strokes you took, and you could see that you could have a tremendous drop in time by working on that tricep. Whereas if you're working on something that didn't impact as much, or impacted like a turn, now the turns, you're only going to do 3 of them in 100 yards or 100 meter short course, right? So they're important, but you don't have as many multiples. And then if you work on it for the start, which is again important, but you only got 1 of them per race. So it's really important to understand like what it is, that where you spend your time, because you're trying to take the biggest opportunities to get yourself better. Now, once you, right, we said, right, you're looking at the motion, now you can start to identify the muscles. So you should have some information and understand what muscles are in your body. So this is part of our education of swimmers. They should know their muscles, right? If you were in business, you'd want to know your business. You want to understand the employee dynamics. You'd want to understand, right, the field that you're in very, very heavily. You want to understand it. And you want to understand financials and things like that. You want to do the same thing if you want to be an expert in swimming. If you want to be great at what you do. If you want to be just participating, that's no problem. Right? That's a hobbyist. But if you want to be good at what you do, and you want to be not just kind of fit in with everybody, but stand out, then you need to know these things. And you need to know another concept, that while you're strength training, you are training what's called the local energy system. So the difference between the global energy systems and the locals is, let's say, just we can give this example, the globals, right, that's your generally your heart and your lungs, and right, delivering all the energy all over the body. But the locals would be like, for this case, for instance, we're talking about the tricep. So, for instance, you could take this marathoner here that's great runner, right, and very, very well trained, and for a distance event, and throw them in the pool for a 1650 or 1500 swim, and they should be trained very well for endurance exercise. Except for they're going to stink up the pool. They're going to go slow. Why? And the reason why they're going to go slow is they're going to get exhausted. Well, wait a minute. They have a great system, but they got a great global system, but their locals were trained for their legs. And this is going to take, lats and triceps. And right, and also it's going to take your forearms and things like this. So it's going to be taking a different set of muscles. So even though the global can provide the energy, the locals can't receive it. It's not built. It's like, being on the grid, electrical grid, right? And they can deliver it over your house, but if your house, somehow the line's broken between the global and the local and the house isn't built to accept that, then the house still doesn't have electric. And that's the difference between the global and local generally. And so you want to understand that you're not just training the muscle to be stronger, but you're training the energy systems, right? including, right, the capillarization increases. So you got more capillaries around those muscles that are working like that. So now we're going to talk about creating your plan. Right? And so to create a plan, it's very, very straightforward what you need to do. And we have tools that do it for our consultants and the coaches that we work with and the swimmers that we work with. So we can cut right to the quick. And it takes us seconds to do what it takes days or weeks for people to figure out. And so we make these tools so we can help you. So the first thing is you want to define your target, right? This is right. Pick your target event. That's pretty easy stuff, right? And then you're going, right? What date will your target competition start? What's your goal? And so we have goal setting tools, time splits. All these things are answered in the tools, the sets of tools that fluid mechanics has. Then it comes down here and it says, have you created a race map? A race map is absolutely essential to you targeting what you need to target. Right? So here we have the race map, which is going to tell you how many cycles you're going to take per lap. That's a really important factor, and how fast you need to take those cycles. So down here, and we'll describe that in a second, your training, your seasonal training is going to have phases. Now, just think about this for a moment, what I told you about that expert, so-called expert, that didn't know what a taper was. They're expert maybe, I don't know in what level, but maybe training as a personal trainer, but not training a high-performance athlete, definitely not a swimmer. So if this makes sense here, you see these phases? We have a build-up, endurance, hypertrophy, strength, and taper. And there needs specific days depending on your events, right? So you would have more endurance, for instance, if you're an endurance athlete, but you should always have some endurance, no matter what. And when you read our energy systems program, and we're going to be giving, we're going to have a Facebook Live in 2 weeks, right? So we've got one next week. And that's going to be we'll be discussing like the PSD, things like this, and I'll go over that in a moment. And then the week after, we're going to bring out our energy systems programs, in-water training, and how to train that. And if you go back in the pool after taking this break that we have right now from the pool, and you know how to get more out of your coach's workouts, you'll be so glad that you had this time off. You'll be amazed at what you can do. Okay, so we need to understand how to get those training phases in line. We have a program that does it, like I said, in seconds for us, depending on the event, and then we can adjust it depending on the athlete and how they normally pace their races. And here we are on taper. Now I'm going to tell you a real quick story about taper. Now, I had a swimmer a while ago, and he was about a 20.50 freestyler, and his mom called me up and said, guess what? We're all excited that this year he was I think a junior in high school, and he's going to strength train for the first time ever. Oh, okay. So he's never strength trained before, she said, and he wants to strength train. We're coming in on the summer season, and we're actually pretty close to right about now. So they're thinking about it now. And I said, okay, great. She says, but he doesn't have a lot of time. He's really academic. He needs to study. So I said, well, when's he going to start his strength training program? Oh, in like the middle of July. I said, when's he going to race? She says, at the end of July. And she said, he'll go in with a lot more strength after that, like a week or so of training. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's total confusion here. Let me help you. I said, he needs to start now. And the reason why is his taper. If you can see this here, his taper needs to dovetail with his swimming taper. So this is strength taper, which has to occur 3 weeks before his swimming taper starts. She has no idea of that. In fact, you're just going to get a muscular breakdown in that time period. One week, you're going to get a muscular breakdown. He's only, if he spaced it out, he's going to have 3 days of strength training. He's just going to be sore for his race. So basically what you do is you're going to have a taper, you get a week off, and you get your strength, your swimming taper. So strength taper for 2 weeks, right? Then you get a week off of strength training while you're still swimming regularly, and then you go in and you dovetail it They had no idea about that. That strength trainer would have no idea about that. Then you start to design your workout. So once you have your plan in place and the dates in line, so you know from this date to this date, I'm going to be building this. From this date to this date, I'm going to be building this. And there's different numbers of repetitions, different numbers of sets, different percentages that you need to lift. So if somebody says to me, hey, can you just pick some exercises for me? I don't know if I'm doing them a favor by just selecting some exercises that they can go and do whatever number. And they don't know what time of the season. They don't know what they're building. So over here, right, you're going in and it's helping you understand some information. It's going to ask you some really important information that we're going to use up here about your cycle count per lap and per event. Because it's going to tell you how many you need to kind of cycle around. Not at it necessarily, but if you want endurance, you might go more of it. Sprint, you might go less of it, but you need that center spot. And your cycle rate, your training days, right? You come down here, right? You select your training phase. Which phase are you in? Before you design your workout, you need to know these things, or you are pointing your boat in the wrong direction and, just taking the throttle and going as fast as you can in the wrong direction. So over here, we look at things like, your motion that you're trying to, right? We start off by motion, right? And then what muscle, what's the function of that muscle? Is it flexion, extension, rotation? What's it supposed to be doing, right? What's the exercise that we're selecting? How many sets? How many reps? And then you're going to go over here, right? How much rest in between them? And then you go over here. And this is so important. We need to train at the right rate to perform at the right rate, right? We need to train at the right, so we're going to find out what that means. Okay, so the question is here, are you training for your event? Let's say your event is hunter freestyle, okay? And first you want to know is what's a cycle? A cycle is, you start in one location and that same arm, let's say it's the right arm, goes all the way back to the same location. That's one cycle. Right? It's cycled once. Now the other arm's cycling on the other side while that's happening, but you've got one cycle. So the same thing with breaststroke, right? You would have one cycle, and the backstroke and butterfly, you have one cycle. So now you're going to say, okay, so how many cycles do you need to take to get down the pool? And what's the average number of cycles you need to take? Because at the end, you might have more cycles in the beginning if you're fatigued, right? But the concept is, right, to try to reduce cycle count overall, right? So that you have less strokes, that's less motion, and more movement, right? Getting down that pool and faster movement, higher quality. And then you want to find out what's your cycle rate. How fast is it, 1.3, 1.35? Because as soon as you know that, and we have tools that figure that out exactly to the 100th of a second for you in seconds, right? And so what's your cycle rate? You want to know what that cycle rate is to find out, like, how fast should I be doing my push-ups? And the reason why is if you are doing push-ups, for instance, right, and you're cycling in those push-ups, you're actually training your body to perform at that rate. So if you're cycling in 1.7, but you were supposed to be cycling at 1.2, you have a 0.5 second differential and a gap that you need to close, right? So that your muscle can learn to fire at that 1.2. You're training them to fire at 1.7. Oh, I should just get stronger. Not just get stronger. You need to train at the right rate. And then once you're training at that right rate, then you're training for your event to actually end up at where you want it, right? So at your goal. So these are really important aspects. Now we use a device that is really helpful with that. Once we do that, right, then we use a tempo trainer, and I think that's you can find them online. They're not, like, I guess really super expensive, and it's really worthwhile. So then you can use that to do your push-ups and your sit-ups and things like that, and it really makes a huge difference. Okay, so those are basically the things that you really want to know about strength training, and there's a lot more, but these are 4 critical aspects, right? So we went over today, number 1, and what you learned was that you need to select the right strength trainer, and hopefully you can see that now. And then you want to find the target exercises to perform. No point in training muscle just to train muscle. You're just going to be carrying around weight. You've got to train the ones that move you forward. You want to, and again, we're training them, right? We're getting them to learn how to do it over and over again at the rate we need it to. You want to create a strength plan. If your strength trainer can't guide you in your strength plan, they're not the right strength trainer for you if you want to get right to meet your goals. And we have experts that work with swimmers all over the world and coaches all over the world, and they do that, boom, 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 they just nail it for you. And then determine how many exercises you need to do and at what pace you need to do them. Okay, so how many means, like if you're doing push-ups, do I need to do 100 push-ups a day? Do I need to do 50 push-ups a day? And what should the sets be broken down into to get this? And what's the progression, right? So we're looking at a progression chart. How do I get from where I am to where I'm going without injuring myself? So these are really important aspects. Okay. So I'm going to take a few questions really quick here. We had some questions coming in that were delivered to me here. Number 1 is from a swimmer. How do I figure out my cycle rate? So if you want to figure out your cycle rate, the first thing to do is really simple. Is call up Fluid Mechanics 610-837-9999. Again, 610-837-9999. Or send us an email at swim@fluidmechanics.net, and we'll give you a few questions. We'll send you out a questionnaire, which is very, very, probably less than 20 seconds to fill out, maybe a minute at most, and you send it back in, and we will get you one of those right away. Okay, so we'll send it right back to you. And that way you'll have your cycle rate, and you start training. Anytime you need it, right, you just try to get back to us, and we'll get that right back to you. Then we just want to make sure that it's done correctly for you, because you're going to spend a lot of time working on that rate. You want to make sure the rate's right. Okay, the second one is a quote from a coach. What if you don't have a strength program for your team in place that takes into consideration those factors that we just discussed? Okay, so number 1, you can have 2 choices really, the way I look at it. 1, send your swimmers to Fluid Mechanics, and we can help them get the help they need, so you won't have to focus on that and spend your time doing it. Number 2 is call Fluid Mechanics yourself, and we can help create a program for your team. So we do both of those. So that way you'll know that the guidance is accurate and correct. Okay. And then the parent, there's one from a parent. When is your strength training program going to be available for us to get help? So right now, live help is available right now. And our online program is in development also right now. It's not open, the online development. We just have the welcome pack, which I highly recommend, and I'll let you know that everybody gets on that. But we're doing it today. Normally it's $49, and we're offering it today free. And so if you didn't get that link, again, send an email, swim@fluidmechanics.net. We'll get you that link, and you can take our welcome pack, which is a wonderful show, really helps you a lot, and it'll give you an evaluation for it. It's really nice. And once you do that, you can send it in, and there's some information that we look at to try to help you. Okay, but that's a fantastic one. So send it in the email. We'll get that out to you if you haven't already taken it. I would recommend taking it. And so that online program is slated to be made available to the public sometime around the end of June. So we're right, and we're animating all the videos and things like that. It's a really beautiful program. You'll see it on the Discovery on the Discover section. Okay, let's see here. Okay, now next week we're going to take a deep dive into another component of hydrodynamics called PSD, which stands for push-offs, slippers, and drifters. It'll give you a fantastic insight. And it'll help you further understand something called the feel for the water, which is one of the most important aspects of swimming fast. Thank you so much for joining us. And by the way, that welcome pack, as I mentioned, is no charge for today. So if you want to take it, you can send it to your friends, your teammates, and I think they'll love it too. It's really helpful, and especially right now, everybody wants to start kind of moving forward and understanding more. So let us know if you like today's show, and share it with a friend. They could get a lot of benefit from maybe this program we just did. And be sure to watch for our next FM Live. It's going to be next week. And invite your friends and your teammates for that. And also don't forget, visit our website, fluidmechanics.net, and go down to the online training and look at the animations there, are really helpful, and the FM Discovery Center. Okay, thanks so much for joining us today. See you next time on FM Facebook Live.